Good morning everyone आणि नमस्कार विद्यार्थी मित्रांनो. My name is Ruturaj Kale and you are watching me from Nagpur. I am going to take you through the concept of the series for the subject called construction planning and management. So the reason that I am going to talk to you about this subject is because of my background. I am a civil engineer by profession. I graduated in 2006, followed by which I did some couple of years of work with government of Maharashtra, and then I moved to my post graduation studies in Pune, where I did my post graduation in advanced construction. Thereafter, I was introduced to campus placement and I was placed into the Gulf, where I have performed the project management work for interior fit outs and the complex construction projects for about a decade. So, with having this experience and being certified for various other project management certificates and also a chartered engineer, I find myself useful for discussing this topic in front of you. So as we all know, concept of the day is a series where we break down the subject into the minor topics where students or the aspirants can actually learn with the basics. So construction planning and management, which is also abbreviated at CPM, is actually different from critical path method. So please note, CPM subject stands for construction project and management, right? So let's see, as I said, the subject is going to be divided into various parts. So the CPM together is divided into 8 modules, and these modules are: first we have to understand what management is, then what is project management and network theory and analysis, CPM and PERD, cost resources and CPM updating, material management, safety management, site layout management and equipment management. So in this 8 module, today we are going to look at the basic of project management, network theory and analysis. Okay, so are you guys with me? So let's start with this subject. Alright. So when we talk about project management and network analysis, all that should come to your mind is the project. The project in itself is a very specialized entity where you need various resources, various types of costs are involved, and you need the specialized personnel to operate this project. So hence the overall management of the project with the various types of entities involved, or the sub entities or sub tasks involved, is nothing but a project management. And when we talk about the network theory, being an engineer, or also you might have studied this in your previous curriculum, the first thing that comes to our mind is a network diagram. So now what network diagram represents is a very similar to the mobile network that you and I use every day. A network is nothing but a connection between 2 points, and this is done through a certain medium. Now that medium can be a representation of anything. It either could be a like a mobile connectivity in terms of your mobile network, like a person to person connectivity in terms of exchange of information, or a connectivity between two activities by the way of the resources it consumes, and the resources could be duration, which is time, cost. So let's see how this goes ahead. All right. So before we talk about the project management, let's take a brief idea about what exactly the project is. So in this particular diagrammatic representation, I have shown the series of activities, or rather steps of certain things. So what I am going to define the project is set of activities which has got a specific duration, start date and finish date is called a project. The project cannot be a set of activity which is enormous, which doesn't have a start and end. It cannot be infinite. That's why the project is always starting at one point and ending at the other. Alright, so let's look at this further. So when we talk about the project with the start date and finish time, also the same thing or same principle applies for our construction. That's why the construction project will also have a definite start time and a definite finish time. So let's look at the project in a further detail. Before you start any project, you will have to understand what are the basic prerequisites of this project. Now, what do you mean by prerequisites? Prerequisite is nothing but the important elements which are going to be input to certain things. So in a construction project, drawing is a primary input, estimation which is derived from the BOQ, then the contract which is coming from the cost. The BOQ is multiplied by the rates of the items and you arrive at the cost. Or rather, BOQ is a document which has a quantity of the item multiplied by rate arriving at the cost, and hence the contract is put in across. Once the contract is done, the job is executed into a certain fashion, and the execution is done as per the drawings, as per the specifications, as per the quality and the time that is proposed. So if we are going to construct any project or execute any project, what you need is the planning. What you need is to understand what kind of management is required. So the project is then further divided into its phases, and those phases are planning, scheduling and controlling. So the project, as I said, if you want to start a project, you need to look at how it is going to be planned. So for planning, or how is it going to be executed, or how is it going to be done, how is it going to be managed. So there were thinkers, the philosophers and the scientists who had said project can be broken down into the further phases, and those phases are nothing but the simple terms that we have learned and understood is planning, scheduling and controlling. Correct? Are you guys with me? So let's look at this. The first part is the planning part. Planning is generally a brain of a project. What are you going to think about? What are you going to look forward? What are you going to propose? How are you going to do it? So the planning, essentially what I said was the combination of 4 W's and 1 H. And those 4 W's being what to do, why to do, when to do, who to do and how to do. And this further gives us an idea about understanding the further elements of planning. See, you might think that the topic or the concept of today is network analysis. And why am I talking about the phases of the project? That is because I hope this is clear now. So the second phase of the project is controlling. Let's look at it. So what do you mean by control? And how do you control and what do you control in your life on a daily basis? For example, we all are adults and we are going to drive a vehicle or ride a motorcycle or a two-wheeler. So the best mechanism to control the speed of your vehicle is nothing but an automobile. So the controlling in the project is very synonymous to the automobile braking system. So why do you brake generally, or why do you control the speed? That is because you want to avoid the overspeeding. That is because you want to avoid the accidents, or that is because you want to avoid or control your vehicle and bring it back to its design speed. That's exactly what happens in the controlling of the project. So the controlling of the project is nothing but a mechanism which avoids you to deviate from the set parameters. That's the reason controlling is nothing but a brake in an automobile. Similar to that, purpose is to avoid the deviation, right? And then this is helpful to keep your project on track with respect to time and consumption of the resource. The third phase of the project is scheduling. So when I talk about planning, when I talk about controlling, we also need to know where exactly to plan, what to plan, how to control. So the schedule is nothing but all these activities put in a particular sequence in a dated format or with its date and time. Then it is called a schedule, or it is the process is called as scheduling. And the various ways by which you can actually schedule the project is by allocating your resources such as time, material, space, equipment and human and technological effort into a certain sequence. That is nothing but a scheduling. So there are further in understanding of schedule, which is a graphical representation. The graphical representation which shows what is the sequence of the activity, how it is linked, how are the time and resources consumed, and the table form or the representation form is called as the schedule of the project. So when you do this schedule, it should have the two basic things. Like we said, the project should have a start date and finish date. So the schedule is the thing which actually indicates what is the start time and what is the finish time. So we start and the completion date is imperative, sequence in the relation is imperative, then only what you will arrive is called scheduling. Here, fine. So now in the scheduling there should be certain tools, and what are these tools? Let's look at them. If I have to schedule or if I have to see the sequential arrangement, I should use or I can use these kind of techniques: bar charts, milestone charts, network methods, and link bar charts. And for today's discussion, what we are going to talk is the network method, network analysis. So let's look at network diagram and its techniques. Network, as I said, the connectivity between 2 points from point 1 to point 2 or from point A to point B. So it is a sequence, and the network arrangement is nothing but a graphical and a logical model, a logical representation of the relation between the two activities. So let's look into this figure. Point A, point 3, and by passing through point 2. In this, there is a logical sequence. What is the logical sequence? Whatever information is getting passed, whatever resources are getting consumed is in a certain sequence from 1 to 2, 2 to 3. This is nothing but a network. In the network, there are two types in the construction management or in the scheduling method. We say in the network analysis, there are two types that you can observe. If your activity is shown on an arrow, it is called activity on arrow network, AOA. And if an activity is shown on the node, then it is called AON, which is called activity on the node. The most common technique used in the construction industry is the first one, this one, in which the activity is shown on the arrow and hence the duration of an activity is also shown on the arrow. We are going to look this in a while, but are you guys with me? There has been a PYQ or just a simple question asking you what do you mean by AOA, what do you mean by AON. So please remember, AON in its name is activity on network, AOA is activity on arrow. Alright. So before we understand the relationship, let's understand what are the elements of the network. In the previous diagram, you saw something was written in the round or in the box, and something was written on the arrow. So the one which is passing from point 1 to point 2 by consuming the duration is called activity. And point 1 and point 2 is the event. Meaning, for an example, in a construction industry, we say we are looking for a excavation of trenches. So if you start excavating from point 1 to point 100, what you are going to sequentially excavate or perform is an activity. So that will start from time 1, time 2, time 3 until the time consumes. And the event will be starting of excavation, finishing of excavation. So the first activity or the first event is we started, the second event is finished. So event is the one which doesn't have duration. It is just completion or start of an activity. So the one which is event is always represented with the node, and the activity is represented on an arrow showing the relationship, how the activity is performing, and the duration is written under it. So let's look at this comparison. Any portion of a project which consumes time or resources and has a definite beginning and end is called an activity. Event is either a start or completion of an activity. We have just seen it in an example. Again, an example, we'll take a common life example of a marriage. Marriage is an event in somebody's life. So the marriage gets completed. That is an event that gets completed. However, all the arrangements, those are required into the marriage arrangements or in performing the marriage. Arranging the venue, arranging a banquet, arranging a food, invitations, guests, and so on and so forth. These are all activity. So starting of a marriage is a thought that comes in your mind, and completing a marriage is the second event that comes in your mind. So all the activities, those are involved to finish the marriage as an event, is activity which will consume time, which will consume cost. An event will not consume time, it will not consume cost. So, event is either start or completion of an activity. Activity is denoted by an arrow in the network. Event are significant point in the project which act as a control point of the project. Why do we say control point? Event is finished, controlled. Event is started. 1 second. Are you with me in this network? Okay. I hope this is clear now. Alright. The length of the arrow has no significance. Meaning, in an activity, the length of the arrow is short or long doesn't mean the short arrow has got a less duration, long arrow has a bigger duration. No, there is no relevance. An event is an instant of time and it does not require time and cost as a resource. Again, the example that I have given is excavation in the trench and excavation of the trench completion. The event is denoted by a node in a various shapes. Those can be circular, spherical, rectangular and oval. However, the activity is represented by an arrow. See guys, why I am taking this theoretical thing? Because there are certain PYQs which tells you which is the statement correct or which is the correct or incorrect statement. So the correct statement, for you to understand what the correct statement is, first of all you should know what the statement is. So these slides will be shared with you. You can read them and you will see what exactly the theoretical interpretation of activity and event is. Further, what are the types of events? Let's look at this. In this particular network, we can see certain event as start, then there are medium or middle events and there is a finish. So, tail event or the start event, something. Always in a network it is assumed that the time is passing or the events are happening from left to right. So, the event which is at the start and at the tail of an entire project is called a tail event. The event which is at the further and is going to travel along the time is called as a head event. The event which starts parallel to each other is called as a concurrent event or a dual role event. So in this particular network, this and this are starting together. So these are dual or concurrent. Predecessor events. For any particular event which is the event which is at the backside or at the tail is a predecessor, which is earlier to that event is a predecessor. And for any event, the event which is after that particular event is a successor event. So remember these definitions. You have to understand tail event, head event, dual role, predecessor and successor events. One more activity is called as a dummy activity. This is also one more entity, dummy activity. So now what do you mean by dummy? Dummy is duplicate, which doesn't exist. Dummy is just made for the purpose of showing something or to make certain interpretations. So in a network diagram, if there is a flow from A to C, C to D, B to A to B, B to D, but these two activities are not showing any particular interrelationship, and dummy activity is introduced only in the network, not in a real life terms. So the dummy activity is nothing but a grammatical representation or a logical representation to show the interrelationship. That's why dummy activity, as its name says, will not consume any duration, will not consume any resources. It is just a graphical representation. In the network, we cannot keep two activities without any connection. So to just put a network connection, you introduce an activity and it is called as a dummy activity. Numbering of the events. As per the Fulkerson's rule, who was one of the thinkers in the network analysis, he always suggested that the network should always be taken into the forward pass, means the information or the time should travel from right to left. Right to left. This is the forward pass. and this is a reverse pass. If you start calculating the duration further, left to right, left to right, then this is forward pass. If you start calculating the duration from right to left, then this is called reverse pass. In this particular logic, he says that the event should be numbered from the initial events, means this should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There should not be numbers given to the arrows. Numbers should be given only to the events, not to the activities. By doing so, sir, sometimes we come across the errors. The errors can be looping error, dangling error, or wagon wheel error. Now, looping error means if you relate 1 to 2 and you again say 2 is related to 1, then this is a looping error. In any network, if you have done couple of relations and say now this particular activity is here and not connected anywhere, then this becomes dangling. Then this becomes a dangling error. Here it becomes a dangling error. So this network has to, or this event has to get connected to the next successor event. Then only the network will give you a correct duration. So this is a dangling error. And the third error that happens is a looping error. Wagon wheel error. Meaning if there is an event and you are showing all the relations going towards the event and not coming out of the event, then this is called as a wagon wheel error. Where a wagon wheel error is nothing but an error similar to the wheel of a wagon. So it's a wagon wheel error. So there are these three types of errors that can happen in the network. With this, what we have seen today is the basis of project management, stages of projects, and the network elements. This is just the first part of the concept of the day. Next, in the next video, we will see how is the network derived in its interrelations. So we have seen events, what we have seen activity, we have seen AON, we have seen AOA. Further, we will see the interrelations and the various tools like CPM and PERT. I hope this video has helped you. This video has this session is going to always give you few inputs for your upcoming exam. So with this, if you have liked this video, you can also continue subscribing our YouTube channel and also keep sharing it with your friends and colleagues so they also get benefit. Thank you so much. My name is Ruturaj Kale. I am going to sign off from today's video. Thank you so much.